Hello, everybody. It's Wednesday. It's October 13th. We're a day late with these than the usual time, which would be Tuesdays, but tried doing some stuff. Tried to maybe do a little upgrade of the stream using a different system and a different game, but it didn't work out. So we're back to Madden NFL 16, the good old tried and true. And we're over on Twitch today. As I will also send this video over to YouTube as well. But I figure I have a little bit more people on Twitch that follow me, and figured maybe a couple would pop in the stream and have a little bit of a banter. But we'll see. We'll see if it happens or not today. But just want to thank everybody for watching the streams. I know it's a highlight for some of the people in the league. I know for others it's probably not, depending on where you're ranked. But with that, the rankings are ready. I have them in my sealed envelope from Ernst and Young, the accounting service the official accounting service of the NFL Stableford League. I don't work for them, but I know it's one of the more common ones. But at the same time, just want to thank everybody for getting their game in week 5. I know with this week it's going to be very busy with the promo event, your regular tour event, and on top of that, you have server issues now that are starting to crop up on PS4 and PS5. Hopefully, it doesn't affect you that much in terms of getting your game in our league, as it is only one round on master settings. But as far as getting your other rounds in, good luck. I haven't even started mine yet, so without any further ado, let's get into the NFL Stableford League Power Rankings after week 5. And, well, we're starting off with a team that has been down in this basement, down in the brig, for a couple weeks now, and that would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, Brandon Carroll took them over in heading into week 5 and was not able to pull out a win at home against the undefeated Miami Dolphins, as they lost 24-22. Now, that was not a bad result in terms of the competitiveness. It was a close game, but Brandon, I know, had high hopes walking into the league again after stepping out prior to the season. And I know after putting 2 wins on the board for the Dolphins organization, I think he was expecting a little bit more heading into that last week with the Buccaneers. But we'll see. I mean, he got to pick his own course. Maybe it's just a little bit of first week jitters for the new coach. Uh, I expect the Buccaneers to bounce back in the weeks to come. We're not even halfway through the season yet, and I think that NFC South is a very wide open. And the division leader is 1-4, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are also 1-4. So with that, the Buccaneers now play at Philadelphia, who is 4-1. Zucchero, who's been playing some pretty good Stableford these days. That's going to be a tough one, as Philadelphia is the leaders in the NFC East right now, and I just see that being a game where the Buccaneers have really nothing to lose. So they need to just throw everything out at the wall. Maybe just start going for broke on some holes. Just going for broke, taking some risks, taking some chances, and if it doesn't pay off, oh well, you weren't picked to win anyway, and you really, you're in a division right now that's pretty wide open. So, you know, be a swashbuckler. So we'll see if Tampa Bay takes that advice going forward. I hope they do, because I think they're a team that could definitely rebound from a rough start in the NFL Stableford League this season. Speaking of division leaders, the Philadelphia Eagles are the AFC East or NFC East leaders. I kind of want to go through the division leaders and give some props to those 8 teams who have navigated some tough waters the first 5 weeks. Leading in the AFC North right now, it's the Cincinnati Bengals at 4-1. Now that's impressive, and we're gonna get to them later in the countdown or in this ranking show. But that's a surprise, but not so much of a surprise in some ways, as we knew uh, that Jason was a heck of a player and is definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with down the road here. Uh, in the AFC East, the Miami Dolphins of Cade leading that division, doing a heck of a job, and the only undefeated team in the league. But will they stay the number one team in the league? Well, we'll find out a little bit later in this power ranking show. Also in the AFC, you have the AFC West leading Los Angeles Chargers. I never thought I'd say that, but here I am saying it. And Rubino, Mike has played very well, coming out very on a tough track in a tough environment, and has put out 4 out of 5 W's, and that's impressive. And kudos go out to the Chargers and for how well they've been playing, against some pretty tough opponents. They've been punching above their weight all season long. And yeah, you get a handicap in this league, but you know what? You still have to play up to it, and Mike has been doing that. Also, in the AFC, the final division leader in the AFC South, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I had to look down my list a little bit to find them, but the Jaguars are 2-3. Uh, Basically, the beneficiary of a little bit of a light division, but you still got to play the games. And the Xboxers are not going to go down without a fight. And I can see that division coming down to maybe at least one playoff team, but you never know. I mean, another team could get hot in that division and get into a wild card. But at the end of the day, it's 4 teams in the division. A game is separating the Jaguars from the rest, and you just never know if a team just finds a groove and gets into it, that they could definitely find their way up the rankings and definitely find their way into a division lead. So that's the AFC. The NFC leaders, we have the Philadelphia Eagles, who I mentioned at 4-1 in the AFC in the NFC East. The NFC North, we have the Minnesota Vikings at 4-1. Andrew playing well, and we'll see how far up the rankings the Vikings are this week if after a nice victory at home. Also in the NFC, we have the NFC West leading San Francisco 49ers at 4-1. And there's actually 2 4-1 teams. The LA Rams are there as well. I believe the 49ers have a slight tiebreaker due to conference record, but two teams going very well in the NFC West. And then finally, to wrap up the division leaders, you have the NFC South, which, much like the AFC South, wide open. But in this case, their division leader is at a 1-4 record, and that's the New Orleans Saints of Greg McMillan. So at the end of the day, Greg, might not be the highest ranked in the power rankings, but you can't control who your division is, and you can, control your own destiny by winning your divisional games. And Greg definitely has a path going forward to the postseason if he can keep, those division foes at bay. We could have a 7-10 team making the playoffs. It could be very very possible. Could be 6-11. You never know. With a 17 game schedule now, you have a little extra time to make up some ground. So we'll see if that'll happen in these divisions where we have the leaders under 500. But going forward here with the power ranking show itself, we're going to move on to number 31 on our list, and we'll find out who that is shortly as we scroll through the teams. And it's the Houston Texans. Now, the Texans last week were number 30. They dropped one spot. The Texans are 1-4. The Taft man, Paul, lost against New England 27-24 by a field goal. Put up a pretty good performance there. The Texans, it seems like they play a little bit better at home, but at the same time, they're not a walkover team in my opinion. I think Paul always will give a maximum effort. It's just tough, going up against a team like the Patriots. Franz has been playing really good Stableford since probably the beginning. He maybe had a couple hiccups in the beginning, but now he's really starting to get into a groove, putting up 27 points without any handicap. Whereas Paul gets a big 4 points of handicap, but just wasn't able to put enough together to threaten Paul to threaten Franz. Got to hit those Hail Marys when you're getting points. If you hit a Hail Mary on at least one of your nines and you're already getting 4 points, you got to figure that's a major thing if you can do that. And that goes, I mean, myself included. If anybody that has at least a 2 point handicap, anytime you hit a Hail Mary, that's going to put a lot of pressure on your opponent who may not have any handicap. And at the same time, if you're playing someone that has the same handicap as you, it's a huge boost when you can do that, and especially if you do it on the first nine, because on the back you just have to try to do the best you can to match what you just did. So there's a little bit of a psychology with the Hail Mary a little bit, and I think the Texans maybe just need to put a little bit more into that side of the game plan. And going forward, I could see the Texans competing for W's down the road. It's just running into some of these top level teams, and the Patriots are definitely one of them. Uh, it just didn't work out this week for the Texans. And next, they're going to try to turn it around as they go to Indianapolis. That's a divisional opponent, and they are 1-4 as well. So I know Paul tried setting up a live match, and my thought on that is I love that he did that. That shows me that Paul is in it to win it, and he has nothing to hide. He wants to play live. I think that's great. I think that's a very uh, gentlemanly thing to do, is to reach out to your opponent and say, hey, we're on the same console. You want to try to play it live? If you don't have to. There's nothing in the NFL Stableford rule book saying you have to play live. I knew going in it was going to be tough to have 16 live games a week, especially when you have people that have schedules and you have a life outside of TGC tours. I mean, I don't know how, but some people do, I guess. As I say that, tongue firmly planted in cheek. But at the same time, it's like I really like the effort of Paul going out on the forum and reaching out and trying to get a response. But at the end of the day, it doesn't always work out, and so you just play the game the best you can on your own and put up a score and see how it goes. And there's psychology to that too. Like, do you wait to the end of the week or do you do it early on? Some people like doing it early. Some people like waiting. I like to wait just because I'm the commissioner, and I just like to make sure all the other scores are in before I do my diligence. And at the end of the day, I just I'm a deadline person anyway. That's just how I am with the tours as well. But as far as like the courtesy, yeah, there's nothing wrong with asking. Ask your opponent, reach out, and if they can't, they can't. I mean, and there's only so many people on Xbox and so many people on PC. So this really kind of applies to PS4 players because we have the majority of PS4 players in this league. Uh, would definitely love to see the live matches go up a little bit. I'm a little not so much disappointed by it, but I thought maybe like with having a majority of PS4 players, maybe there'd be a little bit more live play than what we used to have, with the Xbox players. Because the Xbox players, I think they love to play live. I think that was like what they live for. I know Friday nights is a big thing for them, and I know we don't really have that in this league because it's a lot more disjointed and a little bit more of a do it on your own type thing. But I just think there's something to be said for playing a live game against an opponent because you have a final result right away. You know exactly, if you won or lost right off the bat. And plus, it adds a little bit more to the proceedings. You get to know somebody that you may not have known before, and I just think I'd like to see a little bit of that. And I think I'm guilty of it too, because I play ghosts, and that's really not the same as playing the person live. So maybe I could do a better job as well, and that might be something I might try to incorporate in my schedule going forward. Is if I have a matchup against you, maybe like if you can't, you're on the other side of the pond, that's going to be tough. I mean, if you're on the other side of the Atlantic, I'm really not going to expect you to play live with me 6 hours ahead of my time. But if we can find a way to set up a time in the States, yeah, by all means, I'd be willing to play a live match if you're on PS4. But as far as everything else is concerned, uh, I think that the live play, I definitely would like to see it in the playoffs because I think people want to see live matches when it comes to like the big games. But as far as, just like a random week 2 matchup, I don't think people are really going to, be glued to their seats for that. But if you feel like you want to play an opponent live, just reach out to them. I mean, it's not that difficult. We have Discord and we also have the forums, and there's definitely ways that you can. And if you need me to facilitate it, I'll facilitate it as well. So, but that's just my little piece about live play, and I want to thank Paul for kind of bringing that to my attention and posting about that this week. So now going forward in the power rankings, we go to number 30, and it's the Seattle Seahawks. Chris has been struggling. Admittedly, he reached out regarding the setting changes. It's unfortunate because he really started off hot. Like he had a big week, but he got clipped, I believe, with a 30-point game by the Colts to start the season. And I think his course selection was very difficult. Uh, he thought he was going to have a better record than 1-4. I think at this point in the season. Last week, Seattle was ranked 25th, and they dropped 5 spots. They lost pretty handily to the Rams at home, 28-22. Now, that's a divisional opponent, and yeah, that definitely doesn't help. I'm trying to see the glass half full on this. It's still early in the season, and I know Chris is not going to give up, and he's gonna try to turn this thing around. Next, they have to play at Pittsburgh though, and that's going to be difficult as they're 3-2 and they're locked into a tight battle in the AFC North. Now, I can see Chris putting together a good performance here and giving the Steelers a run for their money. Uh, I hope he finds a club set that he's happy with on the master setting. Maybe it's a club thing. Maybe it's just a psychology thing with the tempo. But with master settings, for me, I always like to play around in a different society. Like maybe just join a master society, just so that you're playing like difficulty settings that the tours used to play on, or maybe just going in as far as like changing your own personal settings. Yes, you have to do that anyway. But what I do is I play my career mode, I believe, on Master, and I use the settings I use for the Stableford League, and just use my career mode and maybe pop in for a round on that, and then play my Stableford round. Because then it gets you into the tempo. It's just so hard to come in cold from a pro tours and I don't want to like offend anybody by saying this, but let's be honest, pro it's target golf. I mean, you don't have to really worry too much about your swing in pro. I mean, I know some people there's anecdotal evidence of some struggles on pro, but I guess as far as I'm concerned, that those are the exceptions and not the rule when it comes to pro. I mean, you're seeing these guys coming in from the beer league now and just totally dominating some of the tours and just some of the flights. And I mean, it happened in CCA already last week. And props to those guys. I mean, I guess they should probably rename themselves like the CC crew now, because they're not about the beer league anymore. But that's just my opinion on the matter. And I know there's some brew crew members in the society or in the NFL Stableford League, and I guess you know take it for what you want. But plus, a lot of them are named after hard liquor, so maybe it's just getting, maybe they're getting more degenerative in all their years of having the brew crew that they having to go to the hard stuff now. But that's just me thinking out loud about, just some of the changes between pro and master, and like let's be honest, a lot of these guys that struggled on Master are now dominating on Pro that weren't doing that before. And let's call a spade here. The Pro settings are where the tours probably should have been from the beginning. I think Master definitely excluded some people because it was a more difficult setting even in the beginning, I thought. And I just think that now it's accessible for everybody. And I guess I didn't understand why they wanted to turn the meters off and everything for the first year as well, because everybody you see on Facebook or whatever is playing with their meters on, and it's just like, that's how tough is that? You can actually see where you're supposed to stop the swing. It's like now they're all playing pro on the tours, and it's just like old hat for them because they've had that tempo in their head for so long, and they don't even have to look at the meter anymore because it's just that obvious. So, but yeah, I'm injecting a lot of opinions this week. I really just didn't want to be about countdown this week. I wanted to give a little bit more backstory and do a little bit more storylines about like what's going on with TGC tours a little bit, as well as what's going on in the NFL Stableford League. But what happens in the tours does affect the league because everybody in this league pretty much plays on the tours except for a handful, maybe one or two guys. But that's that's their prerogative. They don't have to play on the tours to be in this. As long as they're on the forums or they're in our Discord, they can be a member. So, but now moving on from the Seattle Seahawks situation, Chris just has to get going on Master. He knows he knows what he's got to do. He's just got to get back into the master setting and get back to, we all got to do it. I mean, if I play in a master league, or if I play in a master society, I gotta transition off my pro setting, and I have to get on the master and just try to keep try to keep myself out of trouble and play the game differently. You just have to keep yourself motivated to want to do both. And I think at the end of the day, the people in this league are committed, and I really do appreciate that. As we now go forward into number 29, and number 29 is the Atlanta Falcons of Allen Ruby Rock, 1-4. Tough loss to the Jets in overtime in Week 5. Uh, they were 31st, and they did move up 2 spots though because of that loss. Uh, really took the Jets all the way to the limit on that one. The bye week comes at a good time for the Falcons as they look to regroup going forward. They do not have a game in Week 6, so hey, they could be at the top of the division if everybody else loses. So they have that going for them at least. But yeah, the Falcons are our wings are a little bit wounded right now as that loss in overtime kind of really hurt. I mean, it was a very good game. I mean, it came down to I believe like the third hole in overtime, and David clipped them. The Jets did. So we'll see if the Falcons can rest up during their bye week, and maybe move up this list by default if there other people struggle. But speaking of people struggling right now, we move into number 28. And that's the Arizona Cardinals. Art Vandelay is 2-3 after a loss at home to division rival San Francisco, 22-20. Art pointed it out himself in the forum that he's the lowest scoring team in the league. I didn't want to pile onto that this week, but I think there's something that needs to be said about it. He's only got 109 points, at least coming into week 5 or week 6, I should say. Um, so something's got to be done about that. I think he's just got to maybe club up a little bit. Maybe try to stay out of the rough a little bit more. I see he's always playing in the sand. I just think in this game, maybe not going for it all the time is not a bad thing, and maybe just playing the wedge shot in or playing the long irons is not a bad play. Sometimes if you play for the eagle, it really costs you because you screw yourself out of the birdie. And when you get 2 points of handicap like the Cardinals do, that can cost you down the road. So I think maybe Art just needs to avoid those humps and get more of those Venturas and more of those um, birdies. As I know he has a name for the birdies, he has a name for everything, and the guy is awesome. I love having Art in the league. Last week he was 21st ranked. He dropped 7 spots this week. Next he's got to play at Cleveland. Cleveland's 2-3 as well, just like Arizona, and they play on a different type of course for what you would expect for Cleveland. Now, will that help Art because it's a similar type of format, like what he's used to, which is a desert theme? We'll see. I mean, it's a little bit of a different type of desert course, but we'll see if Art and the Cardinals feel at home there or not. But right now, the Cardinals just are really not feeling anything right now in terms of the win column, as the points are really hard to come by. And I think if Art can, I don't know, maybe a tweak here or a couple tweaks there in terms of the strategy, and I think he'll turn it around. I think it's a little bit too early to write these guys off because I know Art made a big run at the end of last season to get to the division champion, to his NFC West crown, so he's not going to give that up willingly. And we'll see what happens going forward with those pesky Arizona Cardinals. As we move now to number 27, another team that's had their share of struggles, and if you're down this far in the list, you probably have. That's the Detroit Lions. Now, the Motor City Kitties are coming in here at 1-4. CF did not move anywhere in the rankings this week. He was 27th last week. They did lose at Minnesota, 30-27. So they gave Minnesota pretty much a good game. I mean, usually it's pretty high scoring in Minnesota due to the conditions and the course there, but I think he's won there before, and it's got to be looked at a little bit as a disappointment, as it was a division rivalry game. And now with one win, the Lions are looking very much like they need to get back to where they were last season. And this year it's just different. There's so many good teams. Every week is a tough week in this league this year. Last year you had a few games where you could say, yeah, that's a win. But this year you just don't have that. And I think CF is going to see that again this week, as now he has to host the Cincinnati Bengals, who are the resurgent Cincinnati Bengals at 4-1. And I don't know if the Lions are going to be able to pull that one out, but they're not going to not they're going to give it their best. You know they will. And the Lions were a playoff team last year. They were a wild card team, and I just think right now it is way too early to start throwing in any towels. But I just think with the Lions, along with some of the other teams down here at the bottom, it's kind of go time now. Like in the next few weeks, you're already going to be seeing the midpoint, and you really want to at least try to get as close as you can. I mean, I'd love to see everybody really competing, but that's not always possible. You're going to have teams that are just going to struggle, and that's just the way it's going to be. But I know CF, is a fellow CCA competitor of mine, and I know he's got a lot of pride, and I think he's gonna. Well, they are the Lions, so of course they got to have pride. But I just think going forward, you're gonna see a team that's gonna come back and bite some more kneecaps heading into the the next phase of this season. As we now go to number 26, it's the New Orleans Saints, 1-4. Greg McMillan's Saints stay at 26. There was no change. Uh, they lost at the football team, 29-26 in Week 5. Not a horrible result. I mean, they got lost by a field goal, and the football team is usually pretty tough at home. Uh, I thought the Saints gave a pretty good effort, and that's why they didn't move up and they didn't move down. Uh, would have been hard to justify them moving up, but it's really tough to justify them moving down since they're tied for the lead in their division, and they're actually putting up pretty good numbers every week. It's just they're running into a little bit better of an opponent. That's all. So the Saints will now go marching into their bye week, and that's probably not a bad thing for them, as now they will have a time to think about it and come back refreshed from that, and possibly the lead of the NFC South if all goes according to plan. As a well, we know they'll be tied with Atlanta at least because they'll be on bye as well. So they'll be bye week buddies. So at the end of the day, Greg just had some tough results early on, but all is definitely not lost. And keep the faith if you're a Saints fan, as things can always turn around, especially with the Hail Marys this year. As we now go to number 25, a team that moved down a spot from 24. It's the Carolina Panthers. Josiah has been playing pretty solid this year, and he's been turning some heads with how well he's been doing against some of the top teams in the league. And that didn't change at all in Week 5, as he put up a pretty good performance against the Eagles, but just fell 1 point short at home against Philadelphia. Uh, Nothing to be ashamed of there. Definitely the roar is restored in Carolina this year, it seems. And we'll see if that can continue at home against the Minnesota Vikings in week number 6, as a 4-1 Vikings team riding pretty high in the NFC North right now is going to go into Charlotte and see if they can knock off a pretty good Panther team right now that's probably doesn't have the record to show for how well they've been playing. They get a pretty decent handicap, but they also have been playing pretty solid at home as well. So you don't want to look past this Carolina team going forward. And as well, hey, they could be in the lead in the NFC South if they can pull one out against that Vikings team. So we'll see what happens. Definitely some incentive there for Polecat. As we now move into number 24, we'll find out who that will be. It's a team that Pat McAfee played for. It's the Indianapolis Colts. The 24th ranked Colts moved down one spot from 23. B-Mails, Ben lost at Baltimore 26-24. Uh, Tough loss, but you know what? That's He put up a good performance. That's a tough course. Baltimore's pretty tough at home, and nothing to be ashamed of on that front. The Colts didn't have the horseshoe with them, and just didn't have quite enough luck to get through that one, and ended up going down in defeat. Next, though, the Colts will play against the aforementioned Houston Texans at home, and the Texans are 1-4, and we'll see if who will take the mantle in that AFC South and get that second win, as Jacksonville now sits all alone at 2-3 in the top spot. I see B Mills. He's gonna he's gonna bounce back. He's in kinetic. He's a solid player. I see his scores uh, on the tours, and I wonder how he doesn't have 2 or 3 wins right now. And I think it's just the competition in this league. Again, it's tough. It's not as easy, and it's not pro level either. It's masters. So at some point, you know, if the difficulty sometimes does get you as well if you're not ready for it, and I can attest to that. As now we head to number 23, a team that I know pretty well. It's the Green Bay Packers of Lefty 79, yours truly, who come in at 2-3, coming off a loss at Cincinnati, 29-25. Um, Put up a decent performance against the highest, scoring team in the league, which that's going to be difficult any day of the week. But the Packers just weren't up to the task, and they dropped 3 spots from 20 in Week 5, and now we'll head to Chicago to play their the division rival Bears, who are 3-2. The Packers, it's not starting off as well as they had hoped, but all is not lost. with the difficulty of the league this year, I think the AFC has just been leaps and bounds improved in terms of the amount of talent. I mean, the AFC used to be probably a little bit behind than the NFC, but now with these interconference battles, it's looking like the AFC's got the advantage a little bit, and I think the Packers are finding that out a little bit right now in the beginning stages here. But kudos to the Bengals on that win. Props to them as they're an impressive team. But now the Bears are a totally different animal than a Bengal, as the Bears riotous Sam has them playing really good Stableford right now, and the Packers know it's not going to be like last year's Bears games where there was a little bit more of an ease in some of those. This year, the Bears are going to fight, and the Packers are behind them in the standings. So of course, you want to move, you want to leapfrog them, and you want to move up. So you gotta give a good effort, and we'll see if the Packers can do that in week number 6. As we head now to number 22, another team on a bye week. It's the New York Jets. David Dix's Jets at 2-3. They move up 7 spots from number 29 last week after a big win at Atlanta in overtime. That was in the AFC East. That was probably as big of a must win game as there has been early on in the season. The Jets are not out of it by any means. I mean, they're 3 games behind the division leader in the AFC East right now, the Dolphins, but you don't want to drop too far behind in this league, and Atlanta was playing for a lot as well. Like Atlanta wanted to be in the lead in the NFC South, but that was just 2 teams that were putting it all on the line, and to see 2 teams put 28s on the board and then it have to come to overtime, and the Jets ended up getting the touchdown, and that ended up making the difference being what it was, 34-28. So the Jets are flying high a little bit going into their bye week. It's not a bad time for them to be off. Sometimes you want the early bye, and sometimes you want the late bye. And I think with the teams that I've already mentioned, the 3 teams I've already mentioned that are on bye, I think they all wanted an early bye. I think this is not a bad week for it with a lot of the busy stuff that's going on in the tours. And I think strategically it's going to help them, I think, going forward, because I think now, like the rest of the season, you can just say, hey, I got to focus and just go forward. But some of the teams that haven't reached the bye week yet are probably really looking forward to theirs. And I think these teams that have already had it, like the fact that 3 of them are under 500 right now, I think that's a helper. I think that's just a way to like recalibrate everything, and it gives you a week to figure something out, and you don't have to worry about playing a game this week. So, but now we go to number 21. We go to Blackjack, and it is the Tennessee Titans of Platypus Brigade, who are 2-3 after losing at Jacksonville 29-23 on the road. The Titans were 19th last week. They dropped 2 spots from that loss. I didn't want to drop them too much because I think that Jacksonville situation was pretty odd. Uh, I think there was some GPS issues or directional issues with the team bus, not really knowing where the stadium was, and I think that led to some of the confusion and some of the uh, game plan being not implemented properly there. But I'll give the Titans the benefit of the doubt, and I'll keep them above the Jets, who they just defeated, and I'll keep them in at least 21st for now. Next they have to play Buffalo, and it's at home. Buffalo's 3-2, and looking to keep moving up in that AFC East. The Titans, they're technically tied for the division. Well, they're not technically tied. They're not tied because I mean now that they've lost to Jacksonville, Jacksonville has a tiebreaker. But they're still they're basically in a virtual tie with the Jaguars for that AFC South lead. And I just see that the Titans, interesting case. I feel like I love that they twitch every round. I love that they stream. Uh, I think part of that is that maybe building up a little bit of a following, and that's a good thing. You want to have that support system, and you got people rooting you on, and I think that's pretty cool. But it can also work against you too if people just are bagging you too much on that stream. And I just think at some point, the Titans just got to block out the noise, and they just have to play their game and not worry about it. And I think they'll be fine. And you know what? Might have a shot at a wild card. We'll see. I mean, that AFC picture, there's going to be a lot of good teams in the AFC coming out, but there's also going to be good teams in the NFC as well. So it's just a lot of these teams that are in the 20s here, they're behind the eight ball right now because only the top 14 make the playoffs. So at some point, you just have to make a move, and we'll see if the Titans can block out that noise and use some of that positive platypus energy to maybe move up these rankings in the weeks to come. And you're not going to drop all the way to the bottom if you lose a game to a team like the Jaguars, who are just a top level team right now, playing a little bit below what they are capable of. And I think the Jaguars just kind of took it out on them, and that's kind of what happened in Week 5. As we now go to number 20, we're in the top 20 now. We have the Dallas Cowboys, and we'll move over to them. The team last week, they were riding pretty high on the Bronco last week coming in. They're riding pretty high on the horse, but Scott had a rough go of it against the Giants at home. And Dante Grockett can do that to you. Don is a consummate professional. The G-men are a quality team in this league, and I think the Cowboys just ran into that firsthand, and they dropped 5 spots. The Cowboys are 2-3. They were 15th. They dropped down to 20. And losing that game at home to the division rival Giants, it's a double-edged sword too, because you lose a game in the NFC East, and that's just going to make it a little bit tougher for them if they want to make the playoffs. But it's still early, as I've said earlier, as I've said before. It's definitely still early on yet, and it's no reason to panic yet. But I would just say, it's got to start next week against New England, who's 4-1, and you're now playing on the road at a pretty tough place to play, and the matchups just don't get any easier. But Franz will be waiting for them, as the Cowboys will definitely have to rustle up some wins here soon and try to get back in the picture in the NFC. In the NFC, as I think those couple weeks where they were just way below what I thought they were going to do, and now it seems like the last 2 weeks they were way above, and now it's back to the dumps again. It seems like. So we'll see what happens with Scott, if he can turn things around again and maybe get the boys back to 500. As we now head to number 19, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. They're 2-3. Kike dropped 3 spots from number 16. Uh, Lost to Buffalo in overtime at home. That's a tough one. Uh, Definitely was not wanting that to happen, but the Chiefs had their chances and they just weren't able to get the job done. And sometimes that happens at home. And now they'll have to go at Washington and the football team, who are 3-2. So it's a pretty big game between the Chiefs and the football team. As I think these are two guys that know each other pretty well. They played on other events together, like on the Money Tour and PS4. They're PS4 stalwarts. Uh, I see this game going down to the wire. I think Kike can always pull out a good performance when needed, and I think that football team track is not the most difficult. as I've seen some pretty high scores on it posted already this year. And we'll see. We'll see if the Chiefs like that like wind blown, Lynxy type feel as in Washington. As I think they had a little bit of a struggle at their home course that really kind of caught them by surprise a little bit. But we'll see. We'll see if the Chiefs Kingdom can bounce back and maybe get back to 500 and keep pace in that AFC West, which is definitely but they're already 2 games behind. But I believe they do hold a win over the Chargers, which they're going to want to use that later in their back pocket for a tiebreaker. As we now head to number 18, and we'll stay in the AFC as it's now the Cleveland Browns checking in at 2-3. Tim Mav Hockey doesn't move anywhere this week. Stays at number 18. Uh, Tough loss though at the Chargers, 23-22. That one was a good one. I mean that was a close game, and I don't think the Browns could feel any. You can't really feel bad about that as a Browns fan or a Browns player, as you gave it all you could, and that's a pretty tough place to play. And the Chargers uh, just just had enough to clip them there and get that win. Uh, Now the Browns have a chance though to get to 500 now as they host the Cardinals at 2-3. Now I see this game being a must-win for the Browns as they're in a really tough division right now, and the Bengals are 2 games up on them already in the Battle of Ohio, and I see that division being fought highly contested all the way to the end. Just like probably all 8 divisions are going to be. I mean, I just there's really no runaways right now in any of the divisions, whereas in years past they're usually by about week 7 or 8 you could see like a separation, but right now we're just not seeing that, and I'm not seeing that in the AFC North either. But if the Browns can get the win here, I think that'll make their fan base, that'll make the dog pound pretty happy. And I think with Art, you gotta just kind of go with the flow and kick him when he's down. I mean, that's all you can really do, and it's just tough because you hate to say it because Art's a very, Art's got a good pedigree in this league, and he's been good in this league before, and I know he'll be good again. But right now, the Browns really just need to get back to 3-3, and we'll see if they can do that. As we now head to number 17, and we'll see who delivered. It was the Las Vegas Raiders who come in at number 17, a big jump for Chinatown. Uh, 2-3 a record, and that was a big win they had over Chicago at home, 30-29. So that was the highest score of the week, tied with the Vikings, who also put up a 30. If you put up a 30, you're gonna jump, and that's exactly what happened this week for the Raiders. Despite all the other stuff that's been going on in real life with the team, at least this was a positive thing for them, as they now will head to Denver at Denver, who is 3-2, for a divisional clash in the AFC West. Oh boy, that's going to be a good one. I see uh, Chinatown gets a lot of points in terms of a handicap, but he's gonna have to he's gonna have to be ready, as that Broncos team is definitely gonna be fired up after this past week, and you'll find out why in just a moment. But kudos to the Raiders for finding their form again at home. Uh, the Bears were definitely caught by surprise by that one, as that was definitely a surprise delivery for the Raiders. Uh, they came through. They came through in the clutch, and that's exactly what Chinatown needed, was to put up a win at home against a quality opponent to move up these rankings, and that's exactly what happened. Now, the former number one team, they're not where they want to be yet. I mean, there's still work to do, but they have to feel pretty good that they could still put up a 30 when they need to, and that's you know that's just like the mail coming on time for the Raiders. Is it might have been a little bit late, but at the same time, there's never a bad time for a 30-point game, and that's what the Raiders did. And we'll see if they can keep that momentum going for the weeks to come. As we now head to another AFC team at 2-3, as we hit the midpoint of these rankings, and number 16, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. Corey is at 2-3 after the win against Tennessee at home, 29-23. They move up 6 spots from number 22 last week. Uh, good win. Good win for the Jaguars, despite all the confusion and whatnot that was going on in the background. They put that behind them and just got the job done at home, and that's exactly what you need to do. And now they take the lead in the AFC South. But now the fun begins as they now face the Miami Dolphins in a home game, and it's the 5-0 Miami Dolphins. Now, the Jaguars, this could be their big point of the season here. This could be a milestone game for them if they can knock off the undefeated team, the only undefeated team in NFL Stableford, and establish themselves as an AFC team to be reckoned with going forward. Now, right now, they're kind of on the fringe of the playoffs. They're not quite in terms of these rankings. They're kind of walking right on the tightrope right now. So we'll see if the Jaguars can claw their way up these rankings after their game against Miami this in week 6. As we now hit number 15, another AFC team. It is the Denver Broncos who take a tumble this week. They're 3-2. Austin lost at Pittsburgh in a close one, 23-22. Not really what they wanted, as Pittsburgh, that game was winnable. That was definitely a winnable game on the road, and they're gonna maybe regret that one down the road. But after that performance and some of the volatility in these rankings, Denver drops 10 spots from number 5. So they're right on the cusp here of being on the outside looking in of the playoffs with this ranking, but it's still early yet, and they're only 3-2, and they're still in that AFC. They're still firmly in it in the AFC West. There's no one's. They're only a game behind the Chargers right now, and now they have another division. They have a divisional game coming up now against the aforementioned Raiders, who are 2-3, and they'll play them at home at Mile High. So if Denver can get that win at home, that might do a little. That'll work wonders in erasing what happened last week at Pittsburgh. You always want to take care of home, and we'll see if the Broncos can do that this week. As we move up to number 14, still in the AFC, it's the Buffalo Bills of Wing. Patrick is 3-2. They're moved up 3 spots from number 17. I don't know if the Mafia feels disrespected by this, but that puts them in the playoffs, the 14th rank. I mean, there's 14 teams that are going to make the playoffs, and right now the Bills, in my ranking opinion, are on that outside edge of getting in. They mainly because they beat Kansas City at Kansas City in overtime, which was impressive, and now they go at Tennessee, which that's going to be a difficult matchup. But if you're the Bills and you want to keep moving up, that's a game you got to win. So we'll see if Wing can put them through a table, put those Titans through a table as Week 6 commences here, and the Bills are looking to get back into that AFC East race where they now trail by 2 games. They now trail the Dolphins by 2 games in those standings. And the Bills, hey, we'll see what happens. I think they're playing good. They're playing good Stableford now, and that's what you want to do. As we now hit the lucky number 13, and the Baltimore Ravens. Nevermore, as it's Eddie and Be More Golf Pro who are at 3-2. They move up one spot. That was off the win against the Colts, 26-24 at home, which they took care of their business at home, so they moved up a spot, and all is good in Baltimore. As now they will play at home against the Chargers, who are 4-1, in one of the big games of the week this week. I think that is on Sunday Night Football, and that's going to be a major AFC clash in terms of down the road playoffs and everything else going forward with tiebreakers. They may not be in the same division, but these conference games do matter, and they will add up as the season goes on. And we'll see if the Ravens can keep flying high, as they now are in the race definitely for a playoff spot, as they are now here at number 13. And now we move to number 12. Another AFC North team. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers of Pat Strife, who are 3-2 as well. They move up one spot also from last week, as they defeated Denver at home 23-22. Another theme, they won at home, which that's a main thing that you want to do, especially against a conference opponent. And next they will go they'll play Seattle at home, who are 1-4. Now, this is you don't want to take this opponent lightly, as Seattle comes in a little bit wounded, and the Steelers are definitely just going to want to take care of business and move on to the next one. But we'll see. That you gotta keep putting up decent performances, as they barely beat Denver. That wasn't a dominating win by the Steelers. So we'll see. We'll see if they can continue their momentum at home as the Seahawks come in. As we now move to number 11, and this is the fourth team on bye this week, and it is the San Francisco 49ers, who do not move up or down this week. They stay at number 11. They're 4-1. Jason Crushtastic beat Arizona 22-20. Big win for them. Very big win. And next they have their bye, but that win against Arizona, it's still, I'm still looking for more from the 49ers. I think, they're tied in the AFC, they're tied in the NFC West lead with the Rams, who I think have looked a little bit more impressive with some of their wins, and that's why I have the 49ers down in 11 right now. I just think, to me, I need to see a little bit more on the points side of things. Otherwise, I'd have them easily in my top 10, but they're the only 4-win team not in the top 10, and I guess to me that's, they can feel slighted by it, and maybe they should, because you know what, maybe they know that they're not playing as well as they maybe are capable of, but they're still getting the results, which that's a huge thing. If you're not playing the best and you're still winning, there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you just keep that going. But if it does start to change, then that's when the problems begin. So we'll see if the 49ers can figure some things out on their bye week and keep the momentum going here. As we now hit the top 10, who will it be to lead off the top 10? It is the New England Patriots of Franz. 4-1. They move up two spots. They won at Houston, so that's, they took care of a team that they probably should have beat, and now they will play Dallas, the 2-3 Cowboys at home. Now the Patriots are flying a lot under the radar right now. I think they're just taking care. They're one of the earliest to play every week, and I think they've developed a nice routine under Belichick. That do things the same every week. Don't change who you are. And Franz is following that really well. Like, he's got a routine going. Like, he plays every Sunday. He's one of the first ones to play, and it's working for him. And definitely a good routine, and the Patriots are showing it in the results as they're now only one game out in the AFC East race, and now with another game that's definitely winnable on the horizon here against the Cowboys team that's still kind of finding itself. I can see the Patriots continuing to move up as we now hit number 9. It's the Los Angeles Rams of Cup and Up, otherwise known as Kevin, who are 4-1. Our favorite player from the Happy Tea Friends won at Seattle 28-22. That was a big win as Seattle is just an interesting case. I mean, that's a division rival, first of all, so that's a big win for that. Plus, you're putting lots of distance between yourself and them, and it's already a 3-game gap. So, in the Rams, they kept pace with the 49ers at the top of the division. So, that's another big win there for that reason as well. But now the Rams' schedule gets a little bit tougher as they now play at the New York Giants. That's also a big game of the week. I believe that's America's game of the week, and two guys on PC. So that'll be interesting if Don Tagrocket and Kevin get together. As I know, Don was on their stream earlier, like last week, when Art played against Kevin. I think it'd be interesting to see if there was a way that Kevin and Don could play this one live on PC. But if they don't, that's okay too. But it's gonna be a good game. I just see it coming down to maybe a missed field goal or a missed extra point, and being a very close game. But the Rams have worked their way up, uh, all the way up into the top 10 now, and they check in this week at number 9. As we now head to number 8, who will it be? It's the Washington football team of Coinhen, Zach, who are 3-2. They do not move anywhere this week. They stay right where they are. They were 8th last week as well. They won against the Saints at home 29-26 in a game that they probably should have won, and they did. And now they will play Kansas City at home, who are 2-3. Uh, these non-divisional opponents in these interconference games they're gonna matter, and right now Zach is doing a good job of taking care of business in these. As the divisional games, I just see them beating themselves up in that NFC East. I mean, I could just see all 4 of those teams taking their shots at each other, and that to me is a black and blue division right there. And I think winning these games against outsiders like KC and New Orleans, that's big, and that's how you're going to get in the playoffs. And right now, Washington is in there firmly at 8th right now, and we'll see. I mean, we'll see what the emails say, but I think the emails right now that are coming in from the football team are pretty positive about their team's performance in Stableford. But we won't go into the emails from 10 years ago. We won't touch those because those already got people fired. So now we move into number 7, and we stay in the NFC East, and we move over. It is none other than the G-Men, the New York Giants of Don Tagrocket. They stay at number 7. They after the win against Dallas, really just a solid dominating performance on the road, and it's what you come to expect from the Giants. And I think that's why they didn't really move up and they didn't really move down. I think that was a game that they were projected to win, and they won it handily. I mean, if anything, the Giants could have moved up a little bit because of the gap of that win, but I think at the same time there were some teams above them that had a little bit of a tougher time and probably didn't deserve to move down as much either. So I think the 7th spot is lucky for Don. I think he's right in the sweet spot. I don't think he likes being ranked too high. I think he likes to lay in the weeds a little bit. As at 3-2, he's only one game out in the NFC East, and doesn't really have that target on his back. When you're at the top, that's when everybody puts the target on you. So I think the Giants are going to maintain here, as they now will play the Rams at home, and that's a big game. I think this is one that this could be a playoff preview. I mean, these two teams could face off down the road in the postseason. So we'll see what happens. But I'll have my popcorn ready if they decide to play that one live. But we'll see what happens. As we now move to number 6, well, the other way here, and we head to the NFC North. It's the Chicago Bears of riotous Sam, who are 3-2. They moved down 3 spots. They had a tough loss at Las Vegas. The Raiders put that 30 points on them, and I don't think the Bears expected to lose 30-29. I mean, that was a high scoring affair, and that could have really gone either way. And the Bears, they do take a little bit of a slide, but it's not a major one, and I still think they have a lot left in the tank, definitely for this next game coming up against Green Bay at home. I mean, you got to get up for your rival, and that's exactly what the Packers are. And I think the Bears are going to be ready for that one, and they're going to look to put that loss behind them in the rear view, and we'll see what they do this week against Green Bay at home at Soldier Field. As we now hit the top 5, and the Los Angeles Chargers of Mike Rubino, 4-1. The Chargers are they're ninth. They were ninth last week, but they move up 4 spots on the heels of a win against Cleveland at home, 23-22. Now that was a big win for LA, for the Chargers, as they kept them in the lead in the AFC West. But it was also against a pretty good team that was on its way up. I mean, that was a team that the Browns, they've had a little bit of up and down season, but still, they're an AFC North opponent, and that division is tougher than a $2 steak, really. And I think the Chargers pulling out these close games is definitely building character, and I think they're well deserved of this top spot, as they've beaten some pretty good teams already this season, like Washington, and now they just beat Cleveland, and they're taking care of business when they need to. And yeah, they had one hiccup, but everybody else has too, and except for one team who we'll get to. But now they have to play at Baltimore, who's 3-2 and looking to move up. And if the Chargers can maintain their edge and keep striking when they need to when it comes to putting points on the board, I think the the Chargers definitely have a say to keep moving up in these rankings if they can beat a team like Baltimore on the road. So we'll see if they can do that as we now hit the final 4, and it's another. As we move back to the NFC, it's the Minnesota Vikings of Andrew. Uh, they're 4-1. They were 6th last week. They move up 2 spots after they beat Detroit at home 30-27. Uh, Good win for the Vikings. They needed that. That was an important win for them, as they needed to just keep the momentum going. After they lost, but after they lost last week, they needed to keep that 3-game winning streak momentum going that they had prior to when they left for their 1 week absence, and they've made up for it now. And now they're back in the driver's seat in that NFC North. So all eyes are on them now as they now play at Carolina, who are 1-4, and we'll see what happens. As it's gonna be a tough game. I don't think it's gonna be a walkover, and the Vikings are gonna have to bring their away crowd that they have, and we'll see if they can get the job done on the road. I think the Vikings, they're a top team in this league, and they're in my division, so I know them pretty well, and I know that they'll bring their best effort every week. So we'll see what happens as we now hit the top 3. And number 3, it's the Philadelphia Eagles of Ryan Zucchero, 4-1. They were 4th last week. They move up 1 spot after beating Carolina on the road, 27-26. Uh, Leading that NFC East, which is where you want to be, And next they will be playing Tampa Bay at home, who are 1-4. The Eagles definitely are playing well enough to stay where they are. They're making it a little bit close sometimes. I mean, they've had some pretty close wins, not gonna lie. But at the same time, they're staying above the fray in that NFC East and staying in that top spot, which is what you want to do. Now, we'll see how it goes when they start playing some divisional opponents, but right now they're playing and they're winning. And that's all you want to be doing right now. And they've done it to the tune of 4 out of 5. So we'll see what happens with this Eagles team, but they can't look past the Buccaneers. That's a tough team when they're wounded, and you don't want to. It's like you don't want to play with them. Like you want to take care of business and put your number up on the board, and don't give those Buccaneers any hope. But we'll see. Maybe maybe this is the week that the upset takes over. But as far as the Eagles are concerned, they do not want that to happen. They want to keep flying high, and right now they're doing that. As we now head to number 2, and who will it be? We just passed the Dolphins. It's not them. It is, for the second week in a row, and there's no change. It's the Cincinnati Bengals of Jason, who are 4-1. They keep that number 2 spot after beating Green Bay at home in a very convincing win in 29-25 in the jungle. They have the most points in the league right now at 146 heading into week 6 against Detroit, and they're going to have to go to Detroit, who are 1-4. The Bengals, they had their sights set on that number 1 spot from the beginning, and right now they're right on the doorstep. Can't really say much more than that. They are playing lights out football right now, and kudos to them. They've really earned their stripes so far after 5 weeks in this season. And now we head to the number 1 team in the NFL Stableford League Power Rankings after week 5. Yes, Cade, you can just fast forward all the way to the end. As we know, you are the number 1 team, the Miami Dolphins, at 5-0, and they maintain that number 1 spot after beating Tampa Bay on the road 24-22. A big win for them against their former co-head coach. Uh, excellent job just to pull that one out. And it wasn't a live match on top of that, so that makes it even sweeter, I'm sure. And next they have to play at Jacksonville at 2-3. Now, is this the week where it all comes to a crashing halt? It could be, as the Jacksonville Jaguars are playing some really damn good Stableford right now. Will the Dolphins have enough in the tank to take them down? We'll see, as the Dolphins do have a big handicap walking into any opponent, and at the same time, the Jaguars don't get anything. So if the Dolphins can play their game and keep that high-scoring offense on the field, we'll see if that can translate into win number 6. But I want to thank you for joining me today for this rankings show, the NFL Stableford League ranking show, power ranking show, after week number 5. This will be posted later on YouTube as well. I just wanted to try something new today with Twitch. But this has been Lefty79, and I want to thank you for joining me. And we'll see you next week. We'll be back at our normal time on Tuesday. And this week was just an anomaly because of the NL playoffs with the Brewers and just some other stuff going on. But we'll be back next Tuesday to count them up from 32 to number 1 as the NFL Stableford League rolls on into week number 6. Thank you for watching, and goodbye, everybody.